software engineering role within a defense firm in the UK. Yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. I can't wait to start. And it's kind of, yeah, it feels a bit surreal that kind of we first had the meeting and it's one of those
Mhm.
goals that kind of seemed quite far away at the time. And now it's like, 5 weeks or 6 weeks until I start that role. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Theory is important, but without the practical element, um, what's the point?
So I'm here with one of our clients, Christian, and he has been working with us for some time. And pretty soon, in a few weeks, he's going to start his first proper software engineering role. Hi, Christian. How are you doing?
Hey, Florian, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. So for the people, of course, they don't know you. I've grown to know you over some time now, and pretty soon you're gonna start working as a software engineer as you intended. But let's start a little bit in the beginning. So what was your situation before you started working with us?
Well, I had recently enrolled on a university degree program.
Mhm.
That was my kind of thought process of getting into software engineering originally. Um, but I kind of realized after the first year that I wasn't getting I was getting a lot of the theoretical side, which was fascinating and very, very interesting, but less so of the practical element. Wasn't really building anything, wasn't really working with any kind of complicated systems. And I realized that that was probably the most important factor in landing a role. That was my goal, my outset, and kind of trying to reach out and find a course or program to
Mhm.
do alongside university. And yeah, that's when I found your program. Um, and I had a couple of project ideas in mind that I wanted to do, um, not really fleshed out. They were just very vague ideas. Um, but yeah, it was just basically that. I just really wanted to make sure that I was keeping up
Mhm.
the practical skills
Okay.
alongside the theory.
For somebody that is not in university and is now watching this interview, can you give a little context on like the different aspects of learning about the theory, which is good and fun and can be interesting, and how that really is very different to actually doing the job of creating something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for example, some of the subjects we were looking at were like computer architecture or mathematics, like discrete mathematics, maybe data communications, or yeah,
You already forgot
I've
because
already
it was
forgotten. My
quite.
God, yeah. But topics like that where you can do a lot of studying and a lot of work and a lot of learning towards those sort of topics, but not ever really write a single line of code in
Mhm.
in those subject areas. Um, so I think I'm not saying that they're irrelevant by any means, but you have nothing to build with it. You have nothing to show for it in a sense. And yeah, as I say, the theory is important, but without the practical element, um, what's the point
Yeah.
in some way? So yeah, whereas when you kind of go into something more practical, like with your program, from the outset, you can see what you have starting with console applications to begin with. You can see what you're doing, and as you move through the course, with something like Blazor web app, for example, um, there's some there's some interface you get to work with that it's very rewarding to see that, so um yeah, it's just very different, both very unique and interesting, but just in different ways.
That's always the important thing that yeah, you can learn all about a topic or you can learn how a car works, but if you're not actually driving the thing, you're not getting anywhere. Let's talk about your project in that case. Because one of the things that we do, because we do this practical approach where you should build and you will build something of value, not just some kind of exercise. And our clients, yeah, decide this for themselves. So it is always something that somehow has value and is interesting to our clients. And with Chris here, yeah, tell us a little bit about your project.
Yeah, sure. So it's basically a web application for a very kind of niche community in the UK.
Hmm.
Something I wanted to make for some time, just a platform for motorsport, specifically rallying in the UK, where people can create profiles and share their availabilities for different events.
Hmm.
But even more so, I think kind of the nice part about this project is it's got a little bit of modularity to it with this API that we're working with. So down the line, I'd like to use that data for uh, something a little bit more personal for me to kind of keep track of events. And
Hmm.
because I mean, there are so many all across the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in Europe everywhere. You just have dates and events everywhere. So I'd like to use that as well for my own kind of event management, basically.
I mean, that's the interesting and great thing. So you have in your, yeah, let's say in your free time, in your hobbies or in your interests, you have identified a problem and you've built a solution. And
Yeah,
of course, if you do, this is what we do. Of course, with the help, but you wrote all the code. It's not like we do this for you.
yeah,
Um, and you actually bring now value to the other people as well and to yourself. So you, that's the great thing about being a software engineer. You can identify a problem and fix it, and then the problem goes away, which is very rewarding for one. And of course, it is something that is very attractive to if you're looking for a job, for employment, for a role. It's a whole different ball game. If you say, "Hey, I did some courses, trust me, I can do it," or you can point over there and say, "Hey, I built this platform. This is a real thing, and it exists and it works." And I did this by myself from the ideation stage where we just say, hey, okay, what is the actual problem? How can we solve that? To actually writing some code and bringing it to a point where it actually is a product in the end. Huh?
yeah. And I think
Um,
actually, I was going to say the kind of the really nice thing as well is that this is not following tutorials, which is kind of what I was basically doing before. This is
mhm.
like an original idea um, that's been coded from the ground up, which has been really satisfying. Just
Yeah.
anecdotally, yeah, it's been really cool to see.
This is where the real learning happens. You can't rely on tutorials. Nobody, yeah, for your application, nobody wrote a tutorial on how to do that. And this is then also where you can really dive in deep into the intricacies and the annoyingness of some components or some frameworks, whatever, where you actually have a deep, where you gain a deep understanding. Because at that point, you can't just skip over it and say, okay, I'm just not going to look into this into detail. You got to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the new thing that's coming up in a few weeks, in 5 weeks or so. Um, Of course, I don't know how much you can talk about it if you're bound by some NDA situation, but maybe you can give a little insight.
That's going to be the complicated part. But yeah, I mean, it's a software engineering role within a defense firm in the UK.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. I can't wait to start. And it's kind of, yeah, it feels a bit surreal that kind of it's one of those
Mhm.
goals that kind of seemed quite far away at the time. And now it's like, 5 weeks or 6 weeks until I start that role. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Um, but yeah, it was a very interesting process, kind of applying and going for the role. And, a lot of uh, the early kind of tutorial work, or not tutorial work, but the content work through the course was very
Mhm.
beneficial and helpful in the interview stages, in the technical part, in the technical element. Um, everything from working with arrays and um, kind of writing different methods to solve different problems, to kind of talking about some more uh, technical and theoretical concepts. So it's actually a nice blend of like some of the stuff from university, but also paired with what I learned on the course with you. It really, really helped me to land the role.
Mhm.
Um, but also, I think also, on your program, you give lots of great careers advice, speaking to you anecdotally as well, personally. And that also helped because I was better able to prepare for the roles. And it just takes that one to give you a chance. But with every kind of interview you do, you learn something and you take it to the next one. But yeah, as I say, that all the things together, compounding, yeah, really helped me to land that role. It's on the spoken stages, the video interview stages. It was always a conversation starter, and it was
Yeah.
always a great way to just speak about technical skills as well. Just what project are you working on? Oh, I'm working on this. Can I tell you about it? Um, so that was like, even on the rounds I didn't get the role. I think it was
Yeah.
always there were points in there for that.
That's super interesting always, and really just getting a feel, because a feel for how things, like the real world. I mean, you'll see when you actually now work on some kind of I mean, yours is production code, but you're basically by yourself. You're in a kind of bubble kind of situation, but there you also already get the feeling for things aren't as straightforward as you would like. In university, I remembered from my university this, oh, here is the thing, and this is very interesting, complex problem. Maybe you code a little bit, but it is always, you always go the happy path.
Yeah.
And as soon as you can kind of diverge from your path a little bit. So we're just not going to do this feature now because it's annoying. But as soon as you work on something real, you can't. And then some of your code is going to be some hacky workaround. Not because you don't know any better, but just you also want to move your project forward. But instead of just throwing code at it and praying that it works, you know what you're doing. And this is like the real world situation. Always kind of sad, because not that we lose contact, but you'll be busy doing that thing. And I know how it goes in this big. So I'll not be talking to you as much as we used to. We'll definitely still keep in contact, and also make sure that your pet project takes off properly, which might be another source of income in the future. In the time that we worked together, is there anything that you particularly liked, or did you have some highlights that you want to talk about?
Well, I think the best part of the course is that once you kind of embark on your project, you get support, in deciding what project to go with. Is that when you try something and you're stuck, you have the live calls that you can join with yourself to ask questions and kind of get feedback, and I think that's the most invaluable thing. Certainly later on in the course, it's yeah, you have live calls for the earlier projects you work on, but kind of for me personally, when I've been stuck with something and I've tried to Google the solution, I've looked through documentation, I can't quite find the answer, I don't understand why something is happening or not working. I've gone to you with the problem. These are the steps I've done. Um, this is the error I'm getting, but I can't kind of work my way through this. You know, without fail every single time we've been able to debug the problem. You've been able to explain to me why this is happening and what steps you need to take to resolve it. And it's been just interesting. Sometimes we've kind of gone on a tangent on the live calls, and you've done like a little bit of theory with me, of how some sort of systems or frameworks work, under the hood. Other times it's been like a really obscure thing, and just through your experience, and I think that's the key difference here, is that with the experience you have, you've seen a lot of the bugs and issues, either in your own projects or through production code yourself, and you can guide through those issues. Um, that's just invaluable. And it's gone a long way in my own understanding, but helped me actually get this project near the finish line. Um, Whereas kind of, in some personal projects I've had in the past where I've not finished them, um, you know, certainly quite a few times, it's been a case of, well, I don't really know how to proceed here. I
Mm.
can't find the resources online, or I just don't feel confident enough to kind of push this further. Um, and I've just stopped projects or moved on to other things, and yeah, they just don't get finished. So, that side of the program, the course, has been, terrific.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that was. I mean, obviously, I've been coding for a long time, but all of our coaches have been as well, and this is also the reason why we have structured it in that way, because all that knowledge that we have collected over whatever, every one of us, 10 years of 8 hours a day of just actually producing software. You can't fit that into a book, or you can't fit that into videos, because it is all very situation specific. But when we work together and come into a corner or a situation, then of course I can open up, explain that situation, and then it also makes sense, right? Because you have the context. So hey, this is now happening. There is some database magic that's happening. If I were to tell that to you in a book or in a video, you said, oh, that's interesting, and it's gone again. But if it's your own problem and you get the context and you get the understanding, you'll not forget that, right? This is now part of your arsenal of things. And this is also how I learned, right? This is why we try to recreate that same environment that I got really good at, is just to be very close to people that have a lot of experience. And at that point in time and at that specific problem, I just can open up and give you the context and give you the explanations. And at some point, yeah, the learning never stops, I can tell you that. But at some point, you have seen many situations, and even if it's an unknown situation, this is what you'll probably experience in 2 or 3 years after we've done like working in a production code or in a real environment, is that you can identify situations that, oh, that is similar, right? And you have a starting point to actually start your Google search, or God forbid, your ChatGPT question, and can assess if that what it spits back is actually a proper information or not.
Well, yeah, I mean, also, just learning on the other tangent is learning to debug, and either from seeing you do it on the live calls, because it's recorded and you're doing it in front of me, that carries over. So then the next time you encounter a problem, you're a little bit more fine-tuned and able to take steps to try and work it out yourself. And again, that's also invaluable. Trying to solve the problems on your own, obviously is gonna serve you very well in this industry. So yeah.
Yeah. Again, excited that you can now put this into practice properly. Properly, yeah. You're doing good. You're writing good code. Because it's a different ball game if you actually get paid for it, and if it's a bigger code base and more people are working with it. So that's gonna be super exciting. It's been a very fun endeavor, and also for me, just seeing. This is what I see very often if people have this university background. Yeah, you live in this pubs. Oh, that's theoretical. I mean, algorithms and da da da. And then actually seeing the transformation from just talking about things and not really having the grasp of it, to somebody where when we now have conversation, that is a conversation that very closely resembles a meeting that I would have at the workplace, with another developer. Right, where we can just say, hey, there is an issue. Okay, look at this, let it down. You can follow along, understand, and implement right away. Right? And this is also the point where you can go to an interview and not shit your pants. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I hope people that watch this also can get inspired. You're not alone. You can do it when you do the proper things. Yeah, thank you for joining. I'm really looking forward to your first updates from your new adventure and how that goes, depending on how much you can talk about it. But I think the general thing is, you got your stuff, you got your job, everybody's happy, and looking forward to whatever is your next project, your next things that you're gonna do. And of course, if you ever come to Vienna, you need to join me for a brewski.
100%.
So if you are also interested in going down the same path that Christian just described, and having the actual skills to build something, not just talk about it, good enough to actually get you a job at a proper, good and interesting company, then write a comment down below or send me a quick message and we can talk about that.
I know there's all this talk of AI, putting jobs at risk and stuff, but I think if people are so reliant even to write an email with ChatGPT, I I think maybe there's no better time to put the time into the skills, to be honest.